Alright guys, while I had these shotgun shells taken apart and out, I wanted to kind of take the opportunity to talk a little bit about my philosophy behind the use of certain shot in home defense for your shotgun. I'm not a fan of birdshot being used as home defense. This is going to kind of, I want this to be a discussion. Please, if you're going to rate in on the comments, just please be respectful and respect someone else's beliefs. But my opinion is that birdshot should be used for birds and not for self-defense. Although, if that's all you have, by all means, it'll work as good as it'll work. But if you have the choice of choosing between using a birdshot versus a buckshot or a slug, I would take the buckshot or slug any day of the week. The reason why one of the common reasons why people use birdshot, or they choose to use birdshots, such as like this number 4 shot, or this 7.5 shot, or this 8 shot. Let me show you these. I showed them in the previous video. 8 shot, 7.5 shot, and number 4 shot. The reason why people use these is because they don't want to over penetrate. And I know that people live in like apartments and things like that, but I'm not a fan of it. And the reason why is because you're going to underpenetrate with birdshot. Now you can always let me just run you through. This is 8 shot, 7.5 shot, number 4, and number 2 shot. Okay, so you get the differences in size there. The reason why you're not going to want to use birdshot is because it underpenetrates. Now, you're going to have people that are going to roll in and say, well, there's so-and-so was shot with birdshot and they died. Yeah, there's always cases that are on the fringe, or not on the fringe, and not necessarily untrue, but they're on the ends of the bell curve. They're not in the average, okay? They're extraordinary cases. They're not the normal case. I mean, to give you an example of someone that survived, look at Dick Cheney shot his buddy with birdshot, and the guy in the face, and he lived. So, I mean, there's examples either way. I realize that, but when it comes to using birdshot, it is designed to penetrate small animals that are thin-skinned and thin-boned, and so, like 8 shot and things like that will be just fine. That's all you'll need. But on human tissue is a lot more dense. Our skin is a lot thicker, and our bones are a lot more dense. And so birdshot is not going to necessarily do the job. It's not going to penetrate to the FBI standard of 12 inches, and it's just going to be it's going to create massive surface wounds. Now, there are just a few things that will guarantee incapacitation of a human being. One of those is disruption of the central nervous system, and that includes the spinal cord, the brainstem, and the brain. If you can disrupt the central nervous system, you can disrupt the person. You can't live a second without nervous impulse. So you're going to incapacitate that person immediately. The other way of incapacitating a person, which is a little bit slower, is taking out their vital functions of their organs. So, like if you were to shoot somebody in the heart, most likely you would kill them within a minute or so. There's examples of people that live quite a few minutes after being shot in the heart, things like that, after losing all heart function. But typically it doesn't. Typically within a minute they'll black out and they'll be done. The other thing is disrupting their lung function, their ability to intake oxygen. If you disrupt that, then you can definitely disrupt or definitely incapacitate somebody. So there's those things. The other thing that's a little bit slower, even still, is creating enough blood loss to take somebody out. Now, if you hit someone in the femoral artery, in the aorta, whether it be abdominal aorta or the aorta in the chest, or hit their vertebral artery or their jugular vein, they're going to bleed out, and that's going to cause hypovolemic shock, and that's going to incapacitate them. But it might not happen instantaneously. I mean, if you hit the femoral artery, they could be dead in 2 minutes, but it might take longer than that. So There are so that's one way to reliably to incapacitate someone, is to cause enough blood loss to incapacitate. The next way of doing it is less reliable and has very little consistency, and that's psychological. I mean, someone getting shot, they might psychologically just give up and be done, but they might not. And that's a very you know, some people say, well, the barrel of my 45 is more psychological than the barrel of your 9mm. Well, that's not necessarily true. In fact, getting shot with a 22 might be enough psychological impact to put somebody down. You know, it just kind of depends. But so it's unreliable. There is one other way of dropping or incapacitating a person, and that is causing enough neuromuscular derangement that they are no longer able to function. And that means, like if they took a slug to the pelvic bone and it blows out their pelvis or their femur and they drop, they're unable to stand, that is probably enough. That could be enough to incapacitate somebody. Another thing is hitting them in the spine and, you know, taking out their spinal cord. Usually that'll take out their spinal cord, but, you know, a physical derangement can be achieved, and that can actually incapacitate somebody. But again, that's kind of less reliable. The pelvis is a great place to be aiming for incapacitation, because you have the femoral artery, you have the pelvic bones themselves, which are your weight bearing for your entire upper body. So that's a great secondary place to aim, is the pelvis. So, but anyway, back to the idea of birdshot. If you create a massive surface wound by shooting somebody with birdshot, you may not, even over hours, produce enough blood loss to incapacitate a person. You're definitely not going to hit enough vital organs to incapacitate them, and you probably will not take out the CNS, the central nervous system. Now, I have heard of people getting shot in the face with birdshot and actually, you know, following the optic nerve back into the cranial vault and destroying enough brain tissue to incapacitate somebody, but that's unreliable. Just again, look at Dick Cheney shooting his friend. That was a face shot, and it didn't kill him. You know, so it didn't incapacitate him, didn't do anything, no permanent damage at all. So you got to take that into consideration, and it's just a massive surface wound is going to hurt like crazy, and it might be enough to psychologically stop somebody, but it won't be enough necessarily to create death instantaneously or within enough time to be reliable in self-defense. So, what are the rounds that I would recommend? If you're going to choose a birdshot to be utilized in home defense, I would definitely choose something large like a number 2 shot. Okay, a number 2 shot this is steel shot actually, but I would actually recommend that you use a lead shot in your number 2 birdshot if you're going to use birdshot. Okay, it won't penetrate as far into walls, and you may get enough penetration to incapacitate somebody with your number 2 birdshot. I still don't recommend it, but I do recommend number 2 if you're going to use birdshot. What I really recommend, though, is your double-aught buck and your slugs. Okay, these 2 items are almost guaranteed to incapacitate a person. You know, you've got in the Cellier below, you've got 15 pellets of double-aught buck. And in this Federal, you get a 1-ounce Foster slug. These both have the ability to meet the FBI standards in penetration and exceed them. So I'm a big fan of these as well. Now the other things you can go with is you can go with a triple-aught buck, which makes the pellets the size of a 9mm. And you can put like 9 of those suckers into somebody. That's like shooting them with 9 lightweight 9mm rounds. That'd be pretty devastating. But you can also go a bit smaller than these, and you can go with like your number 4 buck, number 2, number 1, number 3 buck. Those are all viable options. I'm a big fan of just going on the middle road and taking the double-aught buck and just utilizing that But number 4 buck is great. And for those of you that don't want to have the penetration ability through boards, through wall boards and things like that, of like the Slug or the double-aught buck, go with a number 4 buck. It doesn't have quite the penetration inside interior walls, and even if it doesn't penetrate, even if it does penetrate interior walls, it's going to have less energy after exiting that wall, and it's probably going to be less likely to do a ton of damage to somebody on the other side. So I mean, that's a viable option, guys. These have the ability to derange joints, to cause hypovolemic shock or bleeding. They can penetrate to the heart, to the lungs, and can destroy the central nervous system. So, you know, practice with what you are using, what you want to use for home defense. That's the number one thing. Is shot placement is key, and practice is key. Get out to the range, shoot what you're going to use to defend your home with, and get good with it. You know, get so good with it that it's almost second nature to utilize your weapon. And that way, you know, you won't have to worry as much about overpenetration. You know, it's going to take it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice to get to a level where you are proficient enough that you can take a lot of the variables out of it, like stress and things like that. But it's well worth your time and effort to do so. So anyway, guys, just a short vid on my opinion on home defense for shotgun. But anyway, so please rate the video, guys, and comment. And if you're not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe to me. Let's hear what you guys are using for your home defense loads in your shotgun. I'm really interested, and I want to hear your ideas behind it. What's your thought process? If we, you know, get some comments going so people can take a look at them and get some better ideas as to what loads they can use and how they can defend their household. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. See ya.